Hey, Greg, let's sing the Indiana Jones theme or whistle it.
I don't know how I should tell you. Last time we whistled, we got some really, really bad emails.
Oh.
I think we shouldn't. Just roll the intro.
You're right.
Welcome to Passion of the Geeks, the show in which two friends and fellow geeks talk about geek and pop culture and everything else we enjoy. I'm Greg.
And I'm Pat.
And let's get on with the show. Hello, Pat. How are you doing?
Hi, Greg. I'm fine. How are you?
I'm absolutely great. Really excited about today's episode.
Oh, yeah. I'm looking forward to that.
Let's dive straight into today's episode and let's start with some follow-up. So we've been talking about WandaVision the last couple of episodes, and yesterday's episode, we're recording this on a Saturday. Yesterday's episode has been great again, but I think we don't want to spoil anything at the moment because I think our listeners should definitely experience WandaVision spoiler-free.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So the plan is to do a WandaVision review episode maybe in 2 weeks, a week after the last episode. Does that sound like a plan?
That sounds like an excellent plan. And Greg, I apologize for not watching it earlier. I'm such a fool. It's so great. But that's all I'm saying today.
I mean, obviously, I'm glad that you admit your mistake. On the other hand, I had to wait every week for the last 7 weeks for new episodes. And you only had to wait for 3 weeks for new episodes, so maybe you've been the smart one all along, I don't know.
Yeah, but it's fun thinking about episodes during the week and waiting eagerly the next one. So I think you did the right thing.
Actually, I really enjoyed that part, to be honest. Kind of just, letting the last episode sink in, having some thoughts, maybe, thinking about where they might go next. And honestly, after yesterday's episode, I have no idea how they're going to wrap everything up in one episode. No idea. So I'm quite curious about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone, please watch WandaVision. It's really good. And in about 2 weeks' time, we're going to do our review episode of WandaVision.
Yes.
Quite looking forward to that one.
Oh, yeah.
I have some other bit of follow-up. And I think it was last episode where I talked about playing Control.
Yeah.
The game that I downloaded from PS Now because it was there for free. And I quite enjoyed it. In the meantime, I finished the game. I finished DLC as well. And I have to say that I really enjoyed playing Control. And not 100% sure, but in one of our, I think it was in episode 3, where we talked about our favorite computer games of that current generation. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, I think at this point, if I had played Control back then, Control might have had a spot on that list.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I've really enjoyed playing Control the last 2 weeks.
I'm beginning to think that I should give it another chance.
And I mean, you said that you did not get into the story, and I can understand because the way they tell the story takes a little bit getting used to. It's a lot about kind of the environment and having to pick up things and watching in-game videos that kind of give you some details about what has been going on. But just the gameplay, the controls, it just made me one of the few games that really made me feel like a superhero. And maybe because I was watching WandaVision all along and kind of the power set is, telekinesis and flying. So kind of
very similar.
very similar. So maybe that helped as well. But I've just really enjoyed it, and I really like the story. And I mean, not sure if you're familiar. Are you familiar with an old miniseries called The Lost Room?
No, I'm afraid not.
I might have to talk about that in another episode. So it reminded me a lot about that miniseries.
Oh, okay.
And I liked that miniseries as well. It was a series about objects that had certain powers, and long story short, I really enjoyed playing Control and the 2 DLCs as well. So it's high on my list of games of Generation 8. Obviously, I've played it on Generation 9, maybe having shorter load times and high fidelity graphics helped as well. But I mostly enjoyed the gameplay. So I quite like that.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Yeah. So do you have PS now?
No, I don't. But I would probably play it on PC. And not on the PlayStation anyway. So
it's a PS Now, PS5 free game. So you need a PS5 for it, even though it's technically a PS4 game. But I've heard that the graphics on PS4 weren't that good as they were on PC. So they definitely improved the game for PS5. Yeah. Okay. So that was follow-up. Let's move on. Is there anything interesting you found out recently, Pat?
Yeah, I found out that we have a birthday. And much like Mario last year, this year it's Zelda's birthday. And of course, we were looking forward to Nintendo releasing something great to honor that birthday. And so far, there haven't been a lot of news, but at least they will release Skyward Sword for the Switch, which I think, I mean, it's okay. I was hoping for more for this anniversary. And I honestly think that Skyward Sword, while it's not a bad game, it's certainly an okay game. It's not the best Zelda game, and I was hoping for something like the Mario All-Stars we got last year. But yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed. But then again, I mean, we have A Link to the Past. It's available for free on the Switch. If you have an online account, that's the best Zelda game anyway. But I was thinking about something like Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. What do you think about Skyward Sword?
I played it on the Wii. I quite enjoyed it. I'm probably one of the few people who even enjoyed the control scheme where you had to swing your Wii mode in the right way to kill certain monsters. I remember just enjoying it a lot, especially kind of the flying and the way that part of the game worked. Obviously, just releasing Skyward Sword, a game that I've played not too long ago, and asking me to pay money again to play it on the Switch. Nintendo definitely knows how to milk fans for money.
Yes.
Obviously, just like most people, I was hoping for maybe a title and the release date for Breath of the Wild 2.
Mm. Yeah, that would have been great.
But probably because of the pandemic and everything, maybe they're having troubles there as well. But just a bundle of Zelda games, maybe a real remaster like Link's Awakening of something. I would have really enjoyed that as well.
Mm. Yeah, but definitely.
Here's the thing. When we come to our Check It Out segment, I've another Nintendo story to share. But I think at the moment they're just doing everything to get me to buy things I already bought before. And I'm stupid enough to do it. And so far it's working for them. But I think right now I'm not sure that I will buy Skyward Sword.
Yeah.
When it comes out, I'm pretty sure I will buy it, though. But yeah, at this point, I was a little bit disappointed from Nintendo Direct this year. But let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, they're releasing some Zelda-themed Joy-Cons alongside of Skyward Sword. So, yeah, but I was looking forward to more than just that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But let's get over to you, Greg. What have you found out?
I just have two short pieces of news today. First of all, most people might actually already know this one. Spider-Man 3, the Tom Holland Spider-Man 3 has a title now. They're calling it No Way Home. So they're sticking to their naming scheme and include home again. It's silly, but I like that they do that. It just, gives the whole trilogy a feeling of, belonging together. And, no idea who came up with that, but it's silly and it's fun, and I think it fits the tone of these Spider-Man movies. Obviously, No Way Home, could mean many, many things. Maybe it's true that the multiverse gets introduced in maybe in Doctor Strange, and it happens to Spider-Man as well. And No Way Home means, he can't find a way home to his dimension again. I don't know. Maybe Aunt May kicks him out. I don't know. Don't want to speculate too much. I'm just really excited to see a Spider-Man movie, and hopefully it comes out next Christmas. Mm-hmm. And let's just hope that the pandemic is over until then. So you're looking forward to Spider-Man No Way Home?
Oh, definitely. I'm really wondering what they're going to do with it. I mean, there was this, I don't know if it's a rumor or if it has been confirmed that the other Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, will be in the movie as well. I have a hard time believing it, but what do you think?
Here's the thing. I've read things and I've heard things that some people are disgust of joining the cast and are maybe already in it and are playing certain characters. I mean, honestly, I would rather not know at this point.
Yeah.
Just imagine you're going to a theater and you have no idea who's been cast or whatever. And suddenly an old Spider-Man pops up in a role that makes sense, or kind of as a Spider-Man and makes sense story-wise. Wouldn't that be so much nicer as kind of, figuring out such a huge spoiler through a casting notice?
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's a little bit the curse of the internet. There are always spoilers everywhere. Yeah. And sometimes it's really, really hard to not see them. Yeah.
I mean, we're part of the problem. We're having a podcast where we talk about geek news, movie news, comic news, or whatever every 2 weeks. So, we're part of the problem. We're definitely not the solution.
Yeah, don't listen to us. No, don't stay.
So Spider-Man No Way Home, cautiously optimistic as usually. The other news I want to mention, honestly, doesn't excite me that much. It actually leaves me a little bit cold, which is really, really sad. So apparently they're rebooting Superman again. Not much is known yet about this new reboot. Kind of one thing, and that's kind of one adjacent part of it is apparently that J.J. Abrams is producing it. And I don't want to hate on J.J. Abrams. I actually think he's a talented producer, talented filmmaker. But I think he's not the only one in Hollywood who can revive or reboot important intellectual property. I mean, I actually think he did pretty well with the Star Trek reboot. I actually enjoyed The Force Awakens quite a lot. So that was a decent reboot as well. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that he needs to reboot everything and, ruin everything like he did with Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not cautiously optimistic about this one. I don't feel anything, which, as I said before, it's really sad that a new Superman movie doesn't excite me at all.
Yeah. But I mean, I feel the same thing. Abrams, I mean, I don't want to hate him either, but I think he is a great guy when he starts something. He's not as good in finishing stuff, but he's very good at starting stuff. I just want to go back to Lost, how brilliant he started that series, and how I didn't follow it to the end because I didn't like what was going on. But and it's the same thing with the new Star Wars things. I think he did an adequate start, and then someone else made a really great thing, and he again showed us that he just doesn't know how to finish stuff. I mean, really, I'm with you. I'm not cautiously optimistic. I'm just like, meh.
I mean, there are definitely cool Superman stories to tell.
Yeah.
And I think maybe as another idea for a future episode, we could pitch Superman ideas.
No.
Kind of, because I actually think I have a decent Superman movie somewhere back buried in my mind. I'm pretty sure I could deliver a good Superman story that excited me the least. But yeah, I mean, I'm just really sorry. The last few Superman movie, or kind of the last few appearances of Superman on the big screen, did not really excite me. That it wasn't my cup of tea.
Just to be clear here, I liked Henry Cavill as Superman. I thought he was a great casting decision. I don't think that he was the problem.
He wasn't the problem, but I think there are better people out there.
Maybe.
To play Superman.
Maybe, yeah.
Maybe. But yeah. Maybe that's part of our pitch for a new Superman movie, to dreamcasting Superman.
Oh, yeah. That sounds like a great idea. Yeah.
Okay, moving on to check this out. And being the hypocrite that I am, I basically just, downplayed my excitement for Superman for about 5 minutes. And one thing I would recommend, though, is the new Superman show on the CW, which I'm happy to report is actually a version of Superman that worked for me. And it's really strange that DC, the movies, I'm sorry, they don't work for me. But on the TV side, usually all these DC properties, at least initially, at least in the pilot phase, kind of when the shows are starting, they're actually quite good. I watched most of the shows. I fell off from most of them, honestly, because they start strong and then they turn into soap operas that don't excite me that much. But that being said, the new Superman and Lois television show, the pilot is actually quite good. What I really enjoyed about is that they focused more on Superman and his family, Lois and their 2 boys. There's also, a big Smallville connection there. So I quite enjoyed the pilot. I'm not sure if I will continue watching. Kind of depends how, where the show is going to be available. But the pilot, pilot was good. And if I can watch more episodes without too much of a hassle, I will probably continue until it turns into a silly soap opera. Superman and Lois. And I think Superman is played by Tyler Hoechlin. He plays the Arrowverse, I think we're still calling it that, Superman. And he looks the part as well, to be honest.
Okay.
He's as far as I can tell, he's a decent Superman as well.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm going to continue. The other thing I have to check out, and my hypocrisy continues. Yeah, I bought the Super Mario 3D World game that Nintendo released recently. And I played a little bit of Super Mario World, 3D World. And it's fun. Kind of, obviously Mario gameplay. Very, very good. But the exciting thing on that game cartridge or on that disc is Browser's Fury, which I haven't heard of before. It was just there, and I thought, okay, I'm gonna give this a try. And basically, what it is a Super Mario open world game. So you have this open world, you jump around, you find these cat suns that unlock light towers that unlock more of the world. And from time to time, you have to do battle against a giant Bowser, who was corrupted by a black liquid. And in order to fight this giant Bowser, you have to become giant as well. So basically, in the middle of your Super Mario platforming open world game, it turns into kaiju fighting, which I just love. And they're doing this interesting thing where the game world you've just jumped around before, you become big, the game world becomes small, and you can hide behind the towers you just climbed 5 minutes ago. So I quite like. Honestly, I think at this point I enjoy Browser's Fury more than Super Mario 3D World. So yeah, maybe if the whole package gets reduced in price, definitely something worth checking out.
Yeah, sounds like a lot of fun.
Have you ever heard of Browser's Fury?
No, honestly, I haven't. I don't remember that it was included with the original Wii U version of Mario 3D World. I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Could this be that this is something new?
I haven't done any research. Maybe it is something new. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe it is.
I've never played it, and I never had it for the Wii U or something. So either I just missed it, or it's really something new. I need to do some research about that.
Yeah. Yeah, as Browser Fury, definitely a thumbs up for me.
Cool.
Do you have anything interesting for us to check out this week?
Yeah, this week I have something very small and a little bit different than I usually have. And that is Displate. Now, what is Displate? Displate is a sort of a poster that is not on paper, but on metal. So it's a metal sheet with a very colorful type of print on it. It looks absolutely gorgeous. And there are a lot of geeky themes that they offer. Games, movies, books, other sort of geeky paintings. So it's really great what they offer. Those things have just two problems. The first one is they're a little bit on the expensive side, in my opinion. I mean, it's probably justified because, as I said, they look great. They're very stable and everything. So they're a little bit expensive. And the other problem that I have personally is for my geek cave, I have some acoustic problems in my room. And they do not help. They make matters worse. So I need to have paper posters, old-fashioned paper posters. But as a gift or something, I have given one of them to my brother. He's a huge Masters of the Universe fan, and he loved the print. And it's in his garage. He is very happy with it. So that's Displate.com. Just look at it, give it a try, look at it, what they offer. I think they're great.
I've looked at some designs, and yep, they have some pretty cool designs. And we should mention that we're no way sponsored by Displate.
Oh yeah,
yet. So Displate, call us.
Yeah, we're open.
Yeah, I mean we would take on sponsors if they called, obviously.
Certainly, but we will say a disclaimer if we say something that is sponsored.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, I think it's time to turn to our story of the week.
Oh yes.
This week we decided to do a deep dive into Indiana Jones, the movies and everything else that's a little bit connected to probably one of at least my favorite movie heroes ever. Always had a soft spot for Indiana Jones.
Oh, yes, yes.
There was a time when I wanted to become an archaeologist. Mm-hmm. Or actually wanted to. It was on my short list of subjects to study. But then I figured out that there are no Nazis anymore. Yeah, I think well, obviously I was wrong on that, but that's a whole other story. So I decided to go for history, which obviously a choice I haven't regretted. But yeah, I think real archaeology is definitely not what an Indiana Jones movie is. But so let's start with some general thoughts about what you enjoy about indie. What makes indie for you, and kind of how you came to the whole series?
Yeah, what makes indie to me? The hat and the bullwhip, which I have sadly found out is not standard archaeology attire.
I think the hat is, though. The hat is.
The hat is, though. Yeah. They're like with small brushes in the middle of the sun the whole day. They wear hats. So no whip, though. I mean, it's a bit like with you. Indiana Jones is a figure I got to know very early in my childhood. And I mean, he immediately just clicked. He is cool. He's very knowledgeable, but he's not, and I think that's the most important thing. He is not a Superman. He's not one of these usual 80s action heroes. He really gets hurt. He's really someone who has to suffer for his dreams. And I think one of the most important things about Indiana Jones is one of his dreams is it belongs in a museum, in the sense of he's not doing this for money. He is doing it to preserve these things, something he usually fails. But he's just so likable, and in a very strange way, he's very relatable.
Yeah, he is. I mean, it's what's interesting. I mean, when we look at the origins, kind of when George Lucas and Steven Spielberg kind of envisioned the character, came up with the character. I mean, they obviously were inspired by many, let's say, movies from the 40s and 50s, kind of these almost lost world movies about adventurers going to the darkest corners of the world and looking for treasure, finding treasure. Definitely with a little bit of a colonialist vibe, to be honest. When you look at things like King Solomon's Mines, or kind of the whole Alan Quatermain series, that definitely had an influence on Indiana Jones. You have this idea of a white guy, a Western white guy, going, let's say, to South America, to Africa, or to Asia, and basically stealing their stuff.
Yeah.
And kind of, I mean, he's the good guy, but the only difference between him and the bad guy is that he wants to put the stuff in the museum afterwards.
Yes.
Whereas the bad guy wants to, sell. I wants it for power or for money. So there is not that much of a difference. Obviously, in the 80s, this behavior was okay. But I think from a modern point of view, we look at some of the things that Indy did and all these other people did, maybe a little bit, with a more critical eye. Yeah. And kind of when we talk about the movie specifically, I mean, especially the Temple of Doom, the way certain Indians are portrayed might be a little bit problematic from today's point of view. That doesn't mean I think we should cancel Indiana Jones. Obviously not. The movies are really, really good. But maybe one should look at it maybe we need to add a disclaimer to those movies that they depicted behavior that was acceptable back then, back in the 80s, but not today anymore. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it helps that the whole setting is in the 1930s, where even from the 80s perspective, it was a rougher time.
And I mean, and obviously you have the Nazis. So if you're not the Nazi, it's clear that you're the good guy. So that obviously helps.
Yeah, that obviously. And it's always, you're the good guy because your number one priority is that whatever we're looking for, the Nazis won't get it.
I mean, yeah. What's the indie formula for you? Before we kind of talk about some of the movies in a bit more detail, is there a formula to an Indiana Jones movie that indie needs to follow?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of points that I find to be important to make an Indiana Jones movie feel like an Indiana Jones movie. One of these things is that the action and the comedy, they need to be in a sort of a perfect balance. And I think the first and the third, they have that perfect balance between comedy and action. And the Temple of Doom goes a little bit in a little darker direction. It just manages to stay inside the indie formula, in my opinion. Perhaps not everyone agrees with that, but it still feels like an indie movie. While I think the fourth, the action doesn't really work, at least to me, it didn't work. So it tends to be a little bit more of a. It almost feels like a satire, a persiflage of an indie movie. I think that is something that I think an indie movie needs to do. And of course, that indie needs to help the bad guys, whether he consciously needs to do it because they want him to do this, or whether it's just a mistake that this happened. But indie needs to be one of the driving force that the bad guys get as far as they get. As if indie wasn't there, the bad guys probably would never have managed to do it. I think that's a nice idea.
Here's the thing. I'm not sure if I agree with you there.
Yeah.
Because for me, it was always kind of that's for me what's part of the indie formula. It's not actually about what's going on. It's just about his personal journey. The ride that he's on is always about personal growth.
Yeah.
And it seems funny to me that when I look at especially at Indie 1 and 2, there is an argument to be made that the stories of those two movies would end up in exactly the same place if Indy was not part of it. I mean, in Indy 1, if Indy, and in Raiders of the Lost Ark, if Indy is not part of the story,
yeah,
exactly the same happens. All the Nazis die.
Yeah, maybe eventually, yes. I mean, they were digging at the wrong spot. They wouldn't have found the right spot without Indy. Well, they probably would have just carried on digging and digging until they have found it anyway.
Yeah,
you probably are right.
I mean, if it hadn't been for Indy, they would have had the whole amulet on him anyway.
Yeah. Okay, that's true. That. Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of the only people where the story ends, that end up in a different place in Indy, in Raiders of the Lost Ark. It's Marion.
Mm-hmm.
She probably dies if Indy is not around. I don't know.
Yeah, she would.
Or maybe maybe she just parts with the amulet and everything is okay. And in Indy 3, yeah, his father probably dies as well.
Uh-huh.
So, kind of for me, that means that the indie formula is not really about the treasure. It's more about his relationships and how he and what he learns on this journey.
Oh yeah, definitely. From Indy's point of view, I agree completely. Yes. Yeah.
And things, at the end of the story, he usually has nothing to show for it anyway.
That's an important point.
It's either somewhere in a warehouse or it lies at the bottom of a pit or whatever.
Yeah.
So I always liked that about Indy as well, that in the end it was all for nothing.
This is certainly part of it, yes. Yeah. This is an important part of the Indy formula, if you have an Indy formula. That would have been my third point. It's important that Indy ends up empty-handed. Just richer in experience and growth, but otherwise just as he was at the beginning of the movie. Yeah, definitely. That's
and
a good point.
For me, that's definitely something that worked in the first 3 movies.
Yeah, in all of them.
But did not work in Indy 4 for me.
Yeah, that's a good... I guess we would talk about that a little later in our episode, but I think that's probably one of the few things that, for me, worked in the 4th Indy movie. That at the end, everything is gone. That was okay for me. I agree that.
Yeah. So, any other general thoughts before we move on and talk a little bit about the core Indy movies?
Yeah, just one smaller ingredient to the formula: the fantastic soundtrack.
I mean, John Williams, obviously.
Yes.
The Raiders March is one of the iconic themes there is.
Yeah.
And definitely a big part of why Indy works.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Spielberg's direction, it's the soundtrack, and I would definitely say it's Harrison Ford's portrayal as well. He just captures the essence of what Indy needs to be. And I assume you know the story that they cast Tom Selleck first.
Yeah, I heard that.
Or at least they did some screen tests with him. And I mean, Tom Selleck, talented actor and everything, but I don't think that Indy would have been the success it was without Harrison Ford.
Yeah, it would certainly not be the same. I think Tom Selleck's style is just different. And I think what Harrison Ford did nailed the character. It just fits so perfectly. So I think I'm glad that we got Harrison Ford for that.
Okay, let's talk about some of the movies. I think we don't really need to do any spoiler warning at this point. I mean, these movies are 30 years old or something like that. So that's fine. And we don't need to summarize them too much, because I think at this point, if you haven't seen an Indiana Jones movie, just go and watch them. They're really, really good. Yeah,
they are really, really good. I think it was Roger Ebert who actually said back then that I think it was a very slow summer for movie blockbusters, but he said something like, no matter in which year Raiders of the Lost Ark would have been released, it would have been a hit movie. And I still think it today. It's just as watchable as it was 40 years ago. And it was 1981, so it was 40 years ago.
40 years ago, yeah.
Yeah.
So, what makes Raiders of the Lost Ark for you? Do you have any favorite moments or favorite set pieces?
Well, I have to go with the obvious. Raiders of the Lost Ark has one of the best opening prologue sequences ever. Don't you agree?
I definitely agree, and I would add that to the Indy formula as well. And obviously inspired by old movie serials as well. Kind of the cold opens of all 3 Indy movies are actually quite enjoyable.
Oh, yeah. Definitely, yeah.
I think it's interesting that the cold open of Raiders of the Lost Ark basically distills the kind of Indy as an icon. I mean, everything you need to know about Indy, you know from these first 10 minutes or something.
Yeah. You know everything about him. And you see that he can fail. You see that he can be hurt. You see that he can succeed and that he's just very good at what he does. It's so much fun. It's compressed down to this very, very, or in comparison, very short sequence. You know exactly what the story is that's going on. You know, it's. I mean, I think we need to make an episode about the best opening prologue sequences at one point. That will probably be one that we don't need to mention anymore because this one is perfection.
Yeah. I mean, everything that people remember and know about Indy is part of those first 10 minutes. You have the head, you have the whip, you have the little golden statuette that he has to figure out how heavy it is. But yeah, apparently he makes mistake. You have Alfred Molina kind of trying to trick Indy and dying. And you have the boulder, probably the most iconic image from any of those Indy movies. So there's just so much there. There's just so much there in that first. Yeah, it's about 10 minutes, I think. And obviously, the rest of the movie continues building up on that very, very strong opening.
Yeah, it kind of gets a little slower at the beginning, which is great. We get more about Indiana Jones, what he is, how he functions, and what his motivations are. And there are a lot of great character moments in there. It's not just one action set piece after another.
I mean, we get introduced to important characters as well. Marcus, Marion. A little bit later, we meet Sulla. So it's a really, really good screenplay. And Spielberg directed the hell out of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, even the villain. What was his name? His name escapes
Belloc.
me. Belloc. Yeah. I mean, he's not that bad of a guy, to be honest. Mm-hmm. He's just very misguided, and obviously he works for the Nazis, which is pretty bad. But he's just the others. I mean, Indy could be like Belloc as well. He just chooses not to be like him.
Yeah, and that's a great thing about the Raiders of the Lost Ark. You see what he could be, but he isn't because he chooses not to, as you said. And I think this kind of mirror, because they're both very intelligent men, both very driven men. I mean, Indy is not just easygoing; he's very driven in what he does. This is a great bad guy.
Yeah, and obviously, we mentioned it before a little bit. It's not really about the treasure that Indy is trying to seek, but what I really like is how the Ark of the Covenant is connected to his personal journey again. So the idea that Indy has to come to terms whether or not he's a person of reason or whether or not there is a place for faith in his life. And it's an interesting concept for a character arc that this man who's generally very, very reasonable, who believes in facts and science and everything, is confronted with something as magical as the literal Ark of the Covenant, a way to speak to God, which I just think is an interesting concept to for Indy to explore in that movie.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's a sort of a holy relic that kind of symbolizes everything that comes between faith and reason. It's very well chosen by the script writers.
So you said before that you're not the biggest fan of Temple of Doom.
Yeah, I mean, I still think it's a cool movie. It's even a great movie. It's probably from the original trilogy, it's the one I like the least. I mean, it just gets a little bit dark. But again, I think it has a great opening. I liked the musical number and everything they did. And I actually enjoyed Short Round quite a bit. I liked the addition of the character.
He was definitely one of the kids that was not as annoying as he could have been.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he's sometimes less annoying than a certain adult.
Here's the thing. I actually really liked the dynamic between Billy and Billy was her name, yeah.
Willie.
Willie. Sorry,
Yeah.
Willie. I actually liked the dynamic between the two because
Me too.
Willie was so different than Marion was. And I quite liked it. And I think both of them, Short Round and Willie, they were the ideal companions for Indy to literally go to hell. Because that's
Yes.
that's what I think the theme of the whole movie was. And you mentioned it. It is really dark. It's definitely the darkest of the Indiana Jones movies. But I have to admit, I enjoyed it. There are definitely elements that are very, very close to horror, kind of the whole cult in the minds. But then again, you have an iconic set piece as the minecart ride.
Oh, yeah.
Which for me is one of the thesis I have is that the first three Indiana Jones movies, they work so well because each of them has at least one iconic scene or set piece. So in Indy 1, it's the temple, the temple in the beginning. In Indy 2, it's the minecart ride.
Yeah.
And in The Last Crusade, it's the three trials.
Good idea.
And for the hell of me, I can't think what the iconic set piece or the iconic scene in Indy 4 is. I know what they wanted it to be, but they just don't work.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, in the fourth movie, I don't think that there's a scene that is iconic and not too silly. It just didn't work, at least in my opinion.
Yeah. What's your opinion about the portrayal of Indian culture in Temple of Doom?
I mean, this is a hard question because I think first when he meets the Indians in that little village, they're depicted as poor and everything. And maybe it goes a little bit too far with the depiction, but I don't think so. This looks pretty realistic, what a poor village would look like and how they still would give their visitors basically the last food they have. I like that part. And I know that in India, there is a lot of a difference between in which class you are. And I felt the difference between the poor village and the exorbitant wealth of the other class. I found that great. It's just that I think it goes too far. The dinner scene is hilarious. I like it a lot. But just the idea, there are these rich Indians and they eat this and that and an ape brain and snakes and eyeballs. Yeah. Or what did you think?
I mean, there are two sides to this. I mean, on the one hand, it definitely uses stereotypes to depict Indian culture.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I'm not sure whether or not the behavior of the people in the Palace of Panko is actually, it's not supposed to show real India. It's supposed to be the behavior of a death cult, basically. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, what they eat, which is obviously a Western idea of what an Indian death cult might serve for dinner, I think that strangely, at least for me, makes it less problematic because they're the bad guys and they're not supposed to represent real India. But if you watch that scene, and you don't you don't make that leap or you don't make that connection, it might be very, very problematic.
Yeah.
So maybe they should have. I mean, I think they are clear enough that these are not the good guys. That's why they're doing all these horrible things. But if you misunderstand that, it's problematic. But I don't know whether or not that's the fault of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably at that point you don't really know that there is a death cult, or at least they're kind of. Yeah, in the end, it becomes kind of clear that the Maharaja wasn't part of the death cult. He was just as much a prisoner as the other children. So it's. I don't think it's that easy to make that connection that this is death cult food, but I know what you mean, and it helps a lot.
I mean, I think the moment of the dinner, it's obviously not obvious that there is a death cult, but it gets recontextualized later, I think. I mean, in hindsight, I think you need to realize, okay, these were the bad guys.
Yeah. I mean, they are beneath the palace of the Maharaja.
And I think there are obviously other white guys. I mean, Indy and Willie, I mean, they find the food offensive. But there are other white guys there who are completely okay with that food. Maybe that's the problematic thing, that there are white people who are okay with this and don't think that there is anything wrong with it. Maybe that's the issue that we should talk about.
Yeah, no, this is the typical tourist. Oh, they eat that, so I do that as well. Yeah, no, but you're right.
But generally speaking, I have to admit, I'm quite fond of Temple of Doom. I really enjoyed it as well.
Yes, sure. As I said, it's still a great movie. It's just the one that I would say is my least favorite of the three.
So let's move on to what probably is our favorite indie movie.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade.
Oh, yes.
I think just for me, it's the movie that best emulates the formula from Indy 1. Mm-hmm. Again, using Christian mythology.
Yeah.
But adds a twist to it that by introducing Indy's father.
Yeah.
And as I said before, kind of the way the movie is structured, ending in the 3 trials, or the chase sequence in the desert. There's so many, or the bike chase in Germany or Austria. I mean, there's so many iconic set pieces that this is definitely a movie where it's hard to pick a favorite sequence.
Oh yeah, and I mean, it has a great plot that he follows, and he's from one point of Europe to another point of Europe, and it's always very believable. So you see a lot of locales. And I mean, if he's in Venice and that awesome boat chase scene, in Austria with the bike, you've said that, and again the desert. I mean, Raiders of the Lost Ark had an awesome desert chase scene, and they kind of just went up by having a lot of tanks there instead of just trucks.
Yeah, it's one of those things where obviously they took something from the first movie and delivered a version with more.
Yeah.
But whereas most movies who just do a version of the same with more, this one was also better and bigger, more exciting, but still connected to the characters.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because Indy had someone to rescue, or maybe because the stakes were high enough. I don't know, but it always felt earned to me, and never just cheesy and just let's look how big we can go. So I quite like that about The Last Crusade. Obviously, it's bigger than Raiders. It's the stakes are higher than Temple of Doom, but it still manages to focus on the characters.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't go over the top. There's a lot of great scenes that really use whatever they have there. If they have tanks, they have a scene devoted to how tanks work, the way they can shoot, with the way they interact with the surroundings, and it never goes too far. I think it always stays just within that suspension of disbelief frame, and this is, for example, something that the fourth movie doesn't do. It goes too far.
Yeah, I mean, I see where they got some of the ideas for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull for what they were trying to do, in kind of whereas the 30s or 40s where the first Indiana Jones, the first 3 movies take place. Yeah, it was Nazis and Christian mythology, and that in the 50s they kind of move on to Russians and the whole idea of aliens or whatever.
Yeah. On
the one hand, it seems clear what they were trying to do. On the other hand, it feels to me like are you familiar with the double mojo rule?
The double mojo rule?
Yeah.
It sounds familiar, but tell me.
Kind of the idea is that in a movie or in a story, you can only get away with one fancy or fantastical or sciencey thing. Mm-hmm. So kind of you can either have religious magic or you can have aliens, but you can't have both.
Yes, yeah.
And obviously there are many, many exceptions to that rule, the Marvel Universe being one of them.
Yeah.
But I think Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, the indie series, is one where, for me, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull definitely fails because of the double mojo rule.
Oh, that's a really, really good point, because at that point we already had established that there are magical religious artifacts, and now adding aliens to all of this, yeah, I can totally get behind that. Yes.
And the thing is, I mean, obviously the way they frame the whole alien thing, they frame it with South American culture and myth as well. So it's not that it's out of left field, but I mean, we both of us, we have our Indy 4 movie, or we both know what our Indy 4 is. And if I compare it to that, our Indy 4 obviously is Fate of Atlantis.
Yes.
And if I compare it to that, the whole idea, the myth of Atlantis, it's still somehow rooted in a kind of a similar kind of myth than Christian mythology.
Yeah.
It's kind of Western centric, European centric, kind of faith based or whatever. And even in Temple of Doom, that was part of their religion.
Yeah.
So that, in my case, the Shankara stones, they did not break the double mojo rule, because that was myth and religion as well. Whereas, alien head, the aliens and interdimensional travel or whatever, that was just a little bit too much for me. And the fridge did not help either.
The thing is, I think by having a crystal skull and having it South America centric, you kind of go the route that you have gone before, that there is some sort of, even if it's not a religious, it's some tribal magic or some kind of magic. It kind of, I mean, it was a logical leap they made from the deformed crystal skulls to aliens. That was somewhat okay. But as you said, we already had invested in that magical stuff so much that it kind of irked to have aliens suddenly. So I like your double mojo idea.
Yeah. Okay, so anything we need to add, or any other thoughts about the 4 Indiana Jones movies before we move on to kind of some other Indiana Jones adjacent ideas? And I think we should mention this time we're almost an hour into today's episode. So maybe we're probably not going to talk too much about the Young Indiana Jones series.
Yeah. But honestly, I haven't watched it a lot, so I wouldn't have to say that much about it.
I watched a few episodes, but they seemed pretty unmemorable to me. So, yeah, unfortunately, they did not have the lasting impact that the Indiana Jones movies had. Obviously, the same is not true about the aforementioned Fate of Atlantis game.
Oh, yes.
Still, probably, I mean, obviously, because I experienced it differently than the movies, one of my favorite Indiana Jones stories. And I still remember certain things and kind of how I got the machine in Atlantis to work and stuff like that. I really enjoyed that. That game. I really enjoyed that story, and it's so sad that I didn't at least try to adapt it into a movie.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, playing a game it is always a little bit different than just watching a movie. You are more invested in the story because it's you playing. It's never the same thing just watching something. By the way, if people are watching Let's Plays of other people playing, this is not the same thing. Don't do this. Anyway, Atlantis is or was a perfect scenario for this. It was just as fantastic or magical as a religious artifact. It was just as much a legend as the Grail. So it fitted perfectly. And as you said, all the European-centric way, how the scavenger hunt was going on, that was just awesome. That was just something that worked very, very well.
Yeah, it did. Definitely did. So, yeah, I think at some point I have to find a way to replay Fate of Atlantis.
Yeah, I just replayed it a couple of months ago. This is a game I replay every 2 or 3 years, so I really love it that much. It's just like, I mean, I know the puzzles by heart, but it's a bit like reading a well-known book again or watching a movie again that you love. It's just the same thing because it's not just the gameplay, it's also the story and the presentation and everything. Atlantis has such a great design. It just feels very, very mystical. It's a wonderful game.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously there are other things to talk about. There have been indie books that I haven't read. You've read a few of them.
I read a few German ones by Wolfgang Holbein. They were surprisingly okay, but I heard that there's some English ones by Rob McGregor and Max McCoy that might be worth a read, but they're currently not available on any ebook services, so they're not as easy to get.
Okay. One thing we definitely wanted to talk about is Indie's legacy.
Yeah.
Kind of just as Indie was inspired by things that came before, Indie inspired other things as well. So kind of all the things that Indie inspired, what's your favorite?
Probably the Uncharted series when it comes to games. I just love the Uncharted series. I love the way Nathan Drake works, just like or almost like Indiana Jones. He is just as funny, just as capable, but also he's just as likely to fail at something or get hurt. So he's very great. The difference is he does it for his own.
Yeah, but he also learns something in the process, and at the end, he usually does not have anything to show for it as well.
Yes, that's right. It's totally a modern day Indiana Jones. I love it a lot, and I'm actually pretty sad that there probably will never be another Uncharted game.
I mean, I think we had 4.5 really good ones.
True.
So I'm okay with that, and yeah, I think at some point you need to do new stuff as well, kind of come up with new ideas.
Yeah,
and I think at this point they've told the story of Nathan Drake, and I think it was never about what he was looking for. It always was about his personal journey.
Yeah. Well, I still hope that we will see another Uncharted game at one day. But yeah, what would be your favorite indie legacy?
One another part about indie that I really like is kind of him solving the riddles, kind of being on an adventure. The Librarians comes pretty close to that. Similarities between The Librarian and Indiana Jones are definitely more than coincidental.
Oh yeah.
That being said, but not every scholarly character who goes on treasure hunt follows the indie formula or is a successful adaptation of the indie formula, because when you look at something like Robert Langdon, Angels and Demons and Da Vinci Code and whatever, it definitely tries to be kind of use a similar formula, but not as successful and not with the same amount of charisma as Indiana Jones does. So
yeah,
and that's definitely where Nathan Drake delivers. Nathan Drake has the necessary charisma. Obviously, there are other movies, that use ideas and themes as well, but I'm more interested in the outlook at this point, because we're gonna get a new Indiana Jones movie, we're going to get a new Indiana Jones game, and that's the thing where I'm not sure how that works together with the legacy, because what's the new Indiana Jones movie? Is it just gonna be an Uncharted game with more puzzles? What's the new Indiana Jones movie? Is it going to be National Treasure without Nicolas Cage? And that's actually where I'm wondering what the future holds. What about you?
You know from our last episode that I'm hugely looking forward to that Indiana Jones game. I'm really wondering what they were gonna do, and the game makes, or in the game, it is possible to go back to 1930s and Nazis and stuff, which it looks like they're going to do. When it comes to the movie, I'm kind of in the same boat than you are. I don't know what they're going to do, how they want to do it. I mean, it's a given that Harrison Ford is involved. I think there are still possibilities to get a great movie, and I'm really hoping they will.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah, we're hopeful, but I don't know. It's one of those things that I hope it turns out well, but at this point, I'm just as indie at the beginning of Raiders of the Lost Ark. I don't have that much faith in it.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree.
Any other last thoughts about Indiana Jones that we need to add to this episode?
Well, there were probably a lot of other things that we could talk about. There are a lot of other games. There are they try to give Indiana Jones adventure rides a little bit of a story and stuff. But I think we kind of got the gist of who Indiana Jones is and what he is.
I think so too, yeah. Was quite an interesting discussion again.
It was a fun discussion.
Yeah. Okay, so this is it for this week then. Please like, share, and subscribe to our podcast. We're on all major podcasting services, YouTube, and on www.passionofthegeeks.com. You can send questions and suggestions to passionofthegeeks@gmail.com, and you can find us on Twitter @PassionOTGeeks. Okay, Pat, was nice talking to you. Take care.
It was nice. Thank you, Greg. Take care.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?